The night was at its peak. The stage, imposingly lit, emanated an energy that mingled with the screams of fans eagerly awaiting the performance of one of the greatest artists in contemporary music, Amy Winehouse. The atmosphere was electric, as if everyone knew something unique was about to happen. Every flashing light, every chord played by the backing bands heightened the excitement of an audience already completely captivated by the magic of the moment. When Amy appeared, dressed in her iconic style and looking at the audience with a mix of confidence and vulnerability, the entire stadium erupted in applause, but no one knew what was to come. Amy began her performance with the energy characteristic of her performances. She was there to sing, as always, with that husky yet mesmerizing voice that had made her famous worldwide. The audience was completely absorbed, vibrating with the songs that more than just music were expressions of her soul. It was as if the stage itself was becoming an extension of her personality, irreverent, intense, full of emotion. She was Amy, and everyone was there to see her shine. However, something unexpected was about to interrupt that uninterrupted flow of energy. In a moment of pure surprise, in the middle of one of her most famous songs, Amy stopped. The voice that had previously been singing with strength and passion fell silent, as if time had stopped. At first, the audience thought it was just a normal pause, something that could happen at any concert. But soon, silence took over the room. What was supposed to be a mere musical transition turned into a point of tension, a strange feeling in the air, as if something very big was about to happen. It was at that precise moment that everyone began to realize this was no ordinary concert. She looked at the audience with a piercing gaze, as if deciding something important, something only she knew. Amy's expression, normally relaxed and charismatic, now carried an emotional weight no one expected. The audience, already gripped by the mystery, watched in absolute silence, waiting for her next move. That's when Amy, her voice trembling, revealed that this show wouldn't just be about her. No, she had something much deeper to share with those present. Something that would change the trajectory of that night and leave a mark on everyone present. Today, we are here to celebrate something much bigger than any of us. Her words echoed in the room, and with them, the tension in the air intensified. What happened after that revelation no one could have imagined. Amy Winehouse, always a star in the spotlight, had decided to interrupt her own show without warning to pay tribute to a music icon. Something that went beyond the usual words of thanks, something that would completely take over the stage and change the course of the performance. What she was about to do was not just a tribute, but a declaration of respect, pain, and love for the art she so admired. The question hanging in the air was, who would this legend be, and what would Amy do to pay tribute to this person? When Amy Winehouse's show began, no one could have imagined the course of the night would be so drastically altered. The audience, made up of fervent fans who had followed her career and admired her talent, was there to witness the vibrant energy of her unique performance. The combination of her husky voice, her irreverent style, and her incomparable stage presence always created a kind of magic in the air. Every note that left her throat seemed to captivate and touch the hearts of those listening. The warmth of those first songs spread like a lit fire, fueled by applause and screams. It was a true celebration of music. As Amy moved across the stage, the audience followed her with their eyes fixed on her, as if waiting for more than just what she was offering with her songs. There was an air of anticipation, something that seemed to suggest that tonight would be different. Amy was visibly excited, but there was also something in her posture that indicated preparation for something grand, something beyond mere musical performance. The music she sang was imbued with an emotion that seemed to come from a place much deeper and more personal than usual. Something was about to happen, and everyone in the room could feel it. During the first few songs, Amy interacted with the audience in a way only she could, with her relaxed yet charming and intense manner. She talked to her fans, made them laugh, and moved with them. Her demeanor was always a mix of vulnerability and confidence, which made her even more fascinating. But soon, from a distance, the audience began to notice something strange. The performance began to take on a slightly different rhythm than usual. Amy seemed more introspective, her expressions more charged, as if she was searching for something deeper within herself. It was then, during a transition between songs, that she turned to the band, signaling that she needed a break. The audience, unsure of what to expect, fell silent. The atmosphere descended into an expectant silence, as if everyone were waiting for a big reveal. It was at that moment that Amy, with an intense look and an expression that blended seriousness and emotion, interrupted her own performance, something that rarely happened. It wasn't a simple intermission or a pause for breath. It wasn't just the classic exchange of energy between artist and audience. Something was about to be said, and no one knew exactly what it would be. The interruption was so sudden, it almost felt like a moment of loss of control. But instead of apologizing or trying to justify it, Amy looked at the audience with a firm gaze. She seemed determined to do something important, something that would transcend the experience of being just a fan at a major artist's concert. And then, with a voice that, though still choked with emotion, demonstrated an unexpected strength, she began to speak. The previously relaxed and vibrant atmosphere had changed instantly. What had seemed like an ordinary evening had now transformed into a historic moment. Amy Winehouse was about to do something that would leave an everlasting mark on that night. The room, which until that moment had been in celebration, was now completely silent. What she would say could change everything. That pause wasn't just a break in the rhythm. It was a shift in the course of the evening's narrative. The audience was hooked on what was to come, completely absorbed in the anticipation of what Amy would reveal. And in a moment of pure tension, Amy, with a reverent tone, gave the first hint that this would be a tribute to a great music legend. But what would this legend's name be? What else would she have to say about it? The suspense grew with each passing second, leaving fans anxious and at the same time disconcerted, unsure of what to expect. The silence that followed Amy's interruption was dense, almost palpable. The audience waited with heavy hearts, as if they knew something big was about to be revealed, but at the same time, they couldn't foresee the impact it would have. Lights that had previously pulsed to the frenetic rhythm of the music were now gently dimmed, creating an intimate atmosphere, as if everyone in the room were suspended in a moment in time. Amy looked around, absorbing the energy of the audience, completely immersed in that moment. With unexpected calm, Amy approached the microphone again, and this time her voice sounded softer, deeper. It wasn't the vibrant energy she usually conveyed during the show. There was something deeply respectful in her tone, as if she were addressing something much bigger than herself. Today, we are here to celebrate something much bigger than any of us. Her words echoed through the room, sending shivers down the spines of many in attendance. This wasn't a simple introduction between songs. It was something deeper, more personal. The message seemed to carry with it the promise of something meaningful and transformative. Amy's gesture was simple, yet charged with symbolism. She paused, looked down, and took a deep breath as if summoning the courage to continue. The audience, captivated by her every movement, eagerly awaited the revelation that, until that moment, remained a mystery. The tension in the air was almost electric, but at the same time, there was a touch of respect, as if everyone understood this was no ordinary tribute. This night was becoming something monumental. Amy, with a slight tremor in her voice, continued, "I want to pay tribute to someone who, like me, lived music intensely. Someone who not only influenced my work, but also shaped my vision of what it means to be a true artist. The audience, now completely silent, was ready to discover which legend would be honored. Amy's first words seemed to be an opening to a story she felt vital to share. She was offering the audience a window into a world of raw emotion, where respect for the art and life of an icon could overcome any barrier. With each word that left Amy's mouth, the suspense grew. The way she referred to the music legend left no doubt that the figure in question wasn't just an artistic inspiration to her, but something deeper, a figure who had accompanied her through difficult times and triumphs. Amy, always a person of extremes, of unfiltered passion, now seemed to find herself in a place of pure reverence. The entire room was glued to her, and what had seemed like a pause for a simple speech turned into something much bigger. There was something more in the air, something that indicated that what was to come next was something no one was prepared to hear. When Amy finally paused, her gaze softened, but the intensity in the room didn't diminish. The legend's name was about to be revealed, and with it, the true magnitude of what was happening that night would become clear. The audience waited, knowing that what would happen next would not be just an ordinary tribute. They were about to witness something that would transcend Amy Winehouse's performance, something that would go down in history. The room was filled with an almost unbearable anticipation, and for a moment it felt as if time had stood still. What came next would be something none of them would forget. The atmosphere was charged with tension and reverence. Amy, with a deep, emotion-laden gaze, stood center stage, and the audience waited in complete silence, breathing in time with her. The moment had arrived. The reveal was about to happen, and everyone was ready to find out who the legend would be honored on this historic night. The name, which until then had remained shrouded in mystery, was about to be pronounced by one of the most unmistakable voices in world music. Amy, her eyes now closed and a faint expression of longing, finally broke the suspense. The person I want to honor tonight is... She paused dramatically, allowing the suspense to build, before saying with a twinkle in her eye, Billie Holiday. The revelation fell like a bombshell on the audience. A jazz legend, a woman whose music transcended time, pain, and beauty, was now being immortalized by Amy Winehouse. For many there, this tribute made perfect sense, considering the similarities between the two artists, the emotional delivery, the sincerity in the lyrics, and, of course, the struggle with their own demons. Amy's statement was like a key that unlocked a wave of emotion in the audience. Billie Holiday, one of the greatest singers in music history, whose tumultuous life and personal tragedy were often more notorious than her musical career, was now brought back into the light. Thanks to Amy's strength. With her soul-bearing music, Amy revered her as one of the deepest inspirations of her life. It wasn't just any tribute. It was a sincere tribute from an artist who, like Billie, had lived intensely, with all the ups and downs that entailed. Billie Holiday's name echoed through the stadium, reverberating like a chant of respect. The connection between the two artists seemed ubiquitous. Fans began to understand what Amy was trying to convey. She wasn't just singing or paying a superficial tribute. She was sharing a piece of her own soul with the audience, revealing how much Billie Holiday had influenced her music and her life. For many, this meant more than simply imitating a voice or adopting an attitude. It was a true reverence for the woman who, with her pain and her art, had touched so many generations. Amy continued. Billie wasn't just a singer. She was the voice of struggle, survival, and above all, authenticity. She taught me that music needs to be lived, felt, and not just sung. These words echoed in the souls of everyone present. Music wasn't just entertainment for Amy. It was a form of expression of her own existence, and Billie Holiday had been the master at showing her this. The night, which had begun with a vibrant party energy, now took on a more introspective tone. The audience, already ecstatic, began to lose itself in the immensity of this tribute. Then Amy made a delicate gesture, gently touching the microphone, and it seemed as if she were almost touching Billie's memory with her words. She prepared to sing one of Holiday's songs, one of her best-known songs, perhaps Strange Fruit, which became a symbol of the struggle and resistance against racism. The selection of this song was no accident. It represented the pain and beauty of struggle, a combination Amy knew all too well. What happened next was beyond prediction, as the stage was about to transform into a space where the music was not just a performance, but a living tribute to a legend who would never be forgotten. What the audience witnessed was a moment of transcendence, a profound connection between past and present, between two souls who, though separated by time, were united by the power of music. The revelation of Billie Holiday's name wasn't just a moment of tribute, it was a statement of respect for the art, life, and legacy of someone who influenced Amy's own career and identity. And as the audience absorbed this information, many could already sense that the true surprise of the night was yet to come. What Amy would do next would be something no one expected, and one that would leave a profound mark on everyone present. After Billie Holiday's name was revealed, the audience's reaction was immediate and intense. The room seemed to be gripped by a wave of emotion that somehow united everyone in a moment of collective reverence. Amy, with the expression of someone who had just shared something deeply personal, looked out at the audience. The silence, previously tense, was now imbued with hushed gratitude. Everyone was immersed in the magnitude of the tribute, absorbing the significance of what had just been said. It wasn't just a musical tribute, it was a visceral connection between Amy and the legend of Billie Holiday, one that touched the heart of every person there. Amy's decision to interrupt her show to pay tribute wasn't just an artistic choice. It was an act of courage and vulnerability. She stood there in front of a crowd, not just as the artist known for her unmistakable voice, but as a woman who felt deeply connected to another woman, another artist who had faced her own struggles and triumphs. For Amy, this tribute wasn't a formality. She truly believed that Billie's music, marked by struggle and resistance, had been instrumental in enabling her to express herself in the most authentic way possible. And now, by sharing this with the audience, she was building a deeper bond with her fans, making the moment even more meaningful. The audience, which until then had been in pure admiration for Amy's energetic performance, now saw their favorite artist in a completely different light. It was as if, by honoring Billie Holiday, Amy was, in a way, revealing a more human and vulnerable side of herself. She wasn't just the star on stage, but a woman touched by a greater force, something that inspired her in an almost mystical way. Music, for Amy, was more than a career or a life choice. It was her way of coping with hardship, transcending pain, and connecting with the world around her. And that was exactly what Billie Holiday had done throughout her life. The impact of the tribute was even more profound when Amy, with a subtle gesture, indicated that she was about to sing a Billie Holiday song. The audience, already moved by the words she had just spoken, was now completely attentive to what was to come. They knew the performance would not be just an interpretation of a song. It would be an emotionally charged experience, a true immersion into Billie's universe through Amy's powerful voice. And the moment that followed was almost mystical, as if time had dilated and everyone, for a brief moment, were completely removed from reality, enveloped in an aura of pure art. What followed was not a simple performance of the song, but a manifestation, Of everything Billie Holiday represented, Amy, with a performance both fierce and vulnerable, brought the song to life with an intensity that made it unique. It wasn't just a tribute, it was a living tribute, a performance that reverberated with the pain and beauty of a life marked by struggle, passion, and music. The audience, already in a wave of emotion, now couldn't hold back their tears. Those present knew they were witnessing something rare, something that would transcend time and be etched in their memories forever. At the end of the performance, silence fell over the room, followed by an explosion of applause. It wasn't just applause for an excellent musical performance, but a profound recognition that this moment was more than just a performance. It was a moment of pure respect and connection between two artists, one already immortalized, the other feeling called to honor her in a way only she knew how. The atmosphere was charged with a reverent energy, and many in the audience felt touched by something beyond the music. It was as if Billie Holiday's memory had been brought back to life through Amy, on a night that would undoubtedly be remembered as a milestone in her career and in the history of music. What Amy did that night wasn't just an act of worship to a music legend. It was a manifesto of the soul, an expression of music's power to unite, heal, and transport listeners to a place where time and space become irrelevant. And, unbeknownst to her, Amy was building her own legacy that night, creating a memory that, over time, would become a legend in itself. The audience didn't just watch a show, they experienced the music viscerally, witnessing a tribute that transcended the simple act of singing. The silence that followed Amy's performance, already immortalized by her intense tribute to Billie Holiday, was something no one there could have predicted. Normally, after such an emotionally charged performance, the audience would erupt in applause and screams of euphoria, but in that moment, the audience seemed gripped by something deeper. People were in shock, not because the show had been bad, but because what they had just witnessed had transcended the concept of just a show. They had been part of an almost spiritual event, an experience that stirred emotions in ways many had never imagined. The first to react were those closest to the stage, the most dedicated fans. Realizing the magnitude of what they had just witnessed, they slowly rose to their feet, applauding, but subdued, as if at a loss for words. It wasn't ordinary applause, but a silent celebration of something profound, something much greater than a simple musical performance. Each clap seemed charged with respect and admiration, a way of acknowledging that the moment had touched their souls. But at the same time, there was a sense that the audience was still digesting what had just happened. The tribute, the music, Amy's true intensity in that moment had left them speechless. The most interesting reaction came from some of the audience who, before the tribute, were there simply to enjoy an Amy Winehouse concert. For them, the performance was a complete surprise. Some looked at each other in astonishment, as if wondering if what they had just seen was real. It wasn't uncommon to see artists talking about their inspirations, but no one imagined Amy would take the stage to deliver such a powerful and intimate tribute, to the point of interrupting her show so abruptly. The energy of the night shifted instantly. What could have been just another night of fun and music turned into a landmark of reflection and respect. Amidst this respectful silence, something even more unexpected happened. Amy, who had stepped away from the microphone to compose herself after the tribute, suddenly began walking back to center stage. The audience, still not fully recovered, realized she wasn't going to continue the show immediately. Amy looked at the audience and with a calm smile said, "I know this may seem like a lot to process, but music is never just about the show. Music is our way of healing. Music is what unites us, what makes us see what's most important. We're not here just to hear good music. We're here to live an experience." This short speech, simple yet filled with truth, resonated even more deeply with many in the audience. Amy was speaking directly to them, as if to reinforce that her music wasn't just about fame or the stage. It was about connection. It was about being honest with herself and with those who followed her. Her words especially touched those who knew the constant battle she faced in her own life, a battle that was often reflected in her songs and her personal struggle. What she was doing now, there on stage, was much more than a tribute to Billie Holiday. It was a way to continue her own journey, to honor those who, like her, used music to survive. While some were still absorbing what was happening, others began to stand, still teary-eyed, and began to applaud. Not frenziedly, as if it were just another concert, but with a sense of deep respect. It was almost as if everyone present knew that this moment would mark their lives forever. And, even though the applause grew louder, there was a tension in the air, a feeling that the show wouldn't return to normal anytime soon. Something had changed. That night would forever be etched in the memories of everyone present. They had been part of something bigger than just a musical spectacle. But what was truly impressive was Amy's internal reaction. She didn't seem surprised or nervous about what had just happened. On the contrary, she seemed calm, centered, as if she had fulfilled a purpose much greater than simply singing. She was handling it serenely, as if the emotional connection with the audience was more important than the performance itself. She wasn't there to please, but to connect. And in that moment, it was clear that the audience, even those most disconnected, were already beginning to grasp the magnitude of what they had witnessed. The show, which had begun with the energy typical of a high-profile event, now became a space for reflection. What followed would be more than music. It was a chance for everyone there to reconnect with something deeper, more human, something that transcends entertainment and touches the heart. What Amy had done that night would be remembered not just as a performance, but as a turning point in how we view music, art, and the impact they have on our lives. After the emotional performance and the audience's unexpected reaction, the tension in the air seemed to have never been stronger. The reverent silence that followed the tribute to Billie Holiday had left everyone speechless, absorbing the enormity of the moment. But the real surprise, the part no one there was prepared for, was yet to come. Amy Winehouse, with her enigmatic aura, didn't stop there. She had merely begun something that would take an unexpected turn, something that would leave everyone stunned. While the audience was still immersed in what had just happened, Amy stepped away from center stage. Everyone thought she simply needed a moment to catch her breath or compose herself. But that wasn't what happened. Instead of simply resuming the show or pausing to thank the audience, she began walking backstage without saying a word. The immediate shock on the faces of those watching was unmistakable. This wasn't just the end of a song or a typical exit for a break. She had interrupted her own performance in a moment of high emotion. What was happening? What was going through Amy's mind? At that moment, the confused audience began to stir. The silence soon turned to murmurs and incredulous looks. Some people tried to understand if this was part of some kind of act, but as time passed and Amy didn't return to the stage, uncertainty quickly spread. Has the show been cancelled? Many began to wonder. Some eyes met, others showed clear signs of concern. Many wondered if this was an impulsive gesture or if there was a much deeper reason behind her decision to leave so suddenly. There was no hiding it anymore. Something was completely off. At this point, the production team, accustomed to dealing with unexpected moments on stage, rushed backstage to try to understand what was happening. Some approached fans, trying to reassure them that Amy was just recovering from a deeply emotional moment, but this didn't seem to be just a break. The stage doors remained closed, and the audience began to feel a growing frustration mixed with a twinge of unease. The legend was there live on stage, but now she no longer seemed to want to perform. What was happening to her? It was then that, unexpectedly, the stage lights went out completely. What had been seen as a technical glitch quickly turned into a dramatic act. The lights, which had previously filled the arena with vibrant colors, were now in total darkness. No one knew what to expect next until suddenly a new sound began to emerge from the speakers. But it wasn't the song Amy had been playing minutes before. It was a Billie Holiday recording, specifically one of the most powerful tracks in her repertoire, perhaps Strange Fruit or God Bless the Child. It was as if Billie's own spirit was being summoned, not by words, but by her own music. When the lights returned, the audience was shocked to see the stage empty. There was no Amy. There was no her band. Only Billie's recording played as the audience tried to process what was happening. The tension turned to confusion, then to discomfort. People began to wonder if this was part of some artistic performance, or if something had actually happened to Amy to cause her to interrupt the show so abruptly. The feeling of bewilderment spread like a wave, with the audience in a state of constant speculation about the meaning of this enigmatic gesture. And then, without warning, the screen at the back of the stage lit up. What appeared was a message, written clearly and directly, but with a sense of urgency. Amy Winehouse can't go on with the show tonight. Something bigger needs to be recognized. The phrase, simple yet powerful, made it clear that something more important than the music was being conveyed. Fans, still processing Amy's absence and the unusual performance, began to understand that this wasn't a whim or a simple withdrawal. It was a message, a lesson that needed to be absorbed. The idea that Amy Winehouse, an artist known for her unpredictable behavior and her own struggles, was putting aside her own show to do something so radically symbolic touched everyone's hearts, deeply. Rather than worrying about her own status, she had interrupted her performance to provoke reflection on Billie Holiday's legacy and the true meaning of music. She wanted those in attendance to, more than simply see a show, truly absorb what art represents, the power of music in its rawest and most emotive forms. What seemed like a simple act of interruption turned into a powerful message about life, struggle, and the true purpose behind art. Amy Winehouse, with her abrupt departure and the creation of this reflective atmosphere, proved that music goes beyond the stage, beyond the performance. She demonstrated that, at certain moments, silence and absence speak louder than any words or musical notes. What happened next only heightened the impact of that show. A show that, in truth, was not just a performance, but a life experience. The audience, still stunned and immersed in a sea of unanswered questions, remained silent, waiting for the next twist. The atmosphere was charged with tension, and the uncertainty of what would happen next made time seem to drag. Billie Holiday's music still echoed through the speakers, filling the space in an almost hypnotic way. The crowd, their hearts beating faster, felt as if they were on the edge of a precipice, unsure whether they would finally fall or be rescued. Amy's absence from the stage created a feeling of emptiness, but at the same time, there was something deeply moving about what was happening. Then suddenly, the lights began to change again. They weren't the usual stage lights anymore. They were flickering, changing in intensity, as if to set the stage for something even grander, even more unexpected. At that moment, a murmur ran through the audience. Something was about to be revealed, but no one could have imagined what would come next. Just as Billie's song reached its climax, a familiar figure appeared on stage. It was Amy, but not in the way everyone expected. She was back, but now with a different look. Her hair, usually voluminous and carefully styled, was looser, almost undone. Her gaze, normally confident and sometimes even defiant, was calmer, more introspective. She wasn't there to continue the show in a conventional way. No, Amy was there for something much bigger, to deliver to the audience not just a performance, but an act of pure emotional connection. something far beyond entertainment. She was silent. For a moment, looking out at the audience, her expression filled with deep reflection. The audience, which until then had been disconcerted by her unexpected departure, now regarded her with a new kind of respect. Amy then began to speak, but her words weren't spoken with the casual tone of someone accustomed to interacting with fans. She spoke with a weight that seemed to permeate the space and touch every person in the room. What you saw here today isn't just about me. It's not about the show. It's about something deeper, something that transcends the stage, something that goes beyond art. It's about truth. The truth Billie taught me, that we shouldn't hide our pain, that we should use it to create, to transform. These words weren't just a reflection on Amy's own life, but on how music can be a vehicle of expression that goes beyond mere notes. She was bringing to light the idea that, just as Billie Holiday did throughout her life, music has the power to speak to life's most difficult and profound truths, such as pain, struggle, resilience, and loss. And that's when the true revelation happened. The key to that whole mysterious event, Amy, with tears in her eyes, revealed that behind her performance and eccentric behavior lay a person deeply touched by what the music represented. She wasn't there just to entertain. She was there to viscerally share her own journey with the audience. She spoke about the struggles she faced, the lonely nights, and the moments of fear. And it was in doing so, in exposing herself so honestly, that the tribute to Billie Holiday became more than just a memory of a great artist. It became a life lesson. She was showing the audience how music, even when created from pain and loss, can be a form of liberation. With that, Amy announced in a serious and impactful manner that the next song would not be just another entertainment or a song to keep the show going. She wanted everyone present to see the song as a cry, a testament to her own struggle, and also as a way to honor Billie Holiday's strength. She would begin to sing Strange Fruit, one of Billie's most profound and politically charged songs, which brought to light issues of racism and violence. This would be no ordinary performance. It would be a declaration of courage, a surrender of her soul to the audience. What she was about to do, everyone knew, would not be just a song. It would be a shared experience, and those present could be part of it or not, but the choice was before them, to feel it or to walk away. The stage was now set for something much more significant. The music began to resonate with the power of Billie Holiday, and Amy's presence, now enveloped in her own emotions, gave the song a new layer of meaning. It was no longer just a tribute to Billie Holiday. It was an evocation of what art truly represents: courage, truth, and resistance. And as Amy sang, the audience, which until then had been divided between confusion and admiration, was now united in a single feeling: the experience of being faced with a raw, unfiltered, unmasked truth. They were witnessing an act of pure art, and nothing else mattered in that moment. This revelation, more than anything else, was the true turning point of that night. It was no longer about who was on stage or who was in the audience. It was no longer about a show or a performance. The music had become something deeply human, something that united everyone there in a moment of true emotional connection. And as the song echoed, Amy Winehouse, in her vulnerability and strength, had given the audience something no one would ever forget. The song slowly drew to a close, but the tension in the air didn't diminish. The audience, completely absorbed by Amy Winehouse's visceral performance, was immersed in the silence that followed. The show was no longer just a performance. It had become an emotional journey shared between the artist and her fans. Amy, upon finishing the last note of Strange Fruit, stood still on the stage for a moment, eyes closed, still feeling the intensity of what she had just experienced. She knew this show wasn't just another one of her performances. What she had done there transcended anything she had ever done before. There was something deeper going on. Amy then looked out at the audience, her expression serene but visibly moved. Her posture, previously irreverent and energetic, now exuded an intense calm, as if she were reflecting on the weight of the evening. The audience, previously agitated and frenetic, was now quiet, waiting for her words. Emotions were running high, and even in the silence, everyone there could sense the stakes. The atmosphere was charged with a kind of respect and admiration that could only come from something truly transformative. "I didn't expect something like this to happen today," Amy said, her voice cracking but strong. "But somehow I had to do it. I had to honor Billy's memory, because she was so much more than just an artist to me. She was proof that music can save, it can destroy, it can heal. Art isn't just to be heard, it's to be felt, to be lived. And tonight, we all lived this art together." Amy's words reverberated in the room like a deep echo that seemed to touch something deep inside everyone present. She was speaking in a way that only someone who truly understood the weight of art could. It wasn't just about the music or the show. It was about the true soul of music, about its power to transform. "I'm not here to play shows or just be a star," she continued, her voice now firmer. "I'm here to make you feel what I feel when I sing. I'm here to share my truth, my pain, my joys, my struggles, because that's what makes me who I am. And I'm grateful for Billy because she taught me that pain can be beautiful, that struggle can be art." Every word she spoke seemed to carry even greater weight, a raw truth that touched the depths of humanity. Amy wasn't just paying tribute to Billie Holiday. She was actually reflecting on her own life, her own struggles, and the power of music as a vehicle for genuine expression. The audience was visibly moved. Many had tears in their eyes. Others looked at Amy with a sense of renewed respect. They were no longer just seeing an artist on stage, but a woman who, like Billy, gave herself body and soul to her art, no matter the hardships. What Amy was saying was clear. She didn't sing just to entertain. She sang to heal herself and others. She wasn't there just to be admired. She was there to share her journey with the world, to allow others to see what she saw behind the curtains of fame and the glare of the spotlight. "I just hope that when you listen to my music, you can feel what I feel. I don't want this to be just entertainment. I want this to be an experience. I want you to leave here with something more, something that will stay with you, something that will touch your lives. Because in the end, music is all we have. It's our connection to what's real and deep within each of us." Amy's words were charged with a sincerity that touched the soul. There was no longer room for the distractions of the outside world. There was only now that unique moment of emotional sharing. With a soft smile, she concluded, "And the best way to thank you for all this is to continue being who I am, unafraid to show who I truly am. Not just for myself, but for all of you who have followed me this far. Thank you, Billy, for showing me the way." With these words, Amy bowed to the audience and took one last look at the fans who were deeply immersed in her message. She knew she had done something none of her previous shows had. She had touched people on a much deeper level than a simple performance could. She wasn't just a singer or a star. She was a messenger, sharing the beauty and pain of life, art, and music. And that night, she had shown the world that sometimes the greatest tribute we can pay to a legend is not just imitating their music, but living their truth and being true to what music teaches us about ourselves. With that, Amy Winehouse exited the stage for the last time that night, not as the glamorous artist everyone knew, but as a woman who had found a more authentic way to express herself. What she left those present was more than just a performance. She left a life lesson. A lesson about art, about struggle, about pain, and about beauty. A lesson that would remain etched in the memories of all those who were there, witnessing something truly transformative. The stage was empty now, but the Energy Amy Winehouse had created there lingered in the air, like an invisible force that still touched everyone present. The audience, initially in shock and confusion, was now in a state of deep introspection. Amy's performance hadn't been just a tribute, not just a show. It had been a visceral experience, something that defied convention and touched directly on the most primal human emotions. The audience was reflecting on her words, on the intensity of the night, and most importantly, on how everything they had witnessed had changed them. Billie Holiday's music still echoed softly through the speakers, a reminder of what Amy had just shared. But rather than simply concluding the show, the song now felt like the closing of a larger chapter in the lives of everyone present. Those present had not only witnessed a memorable performance, but had been part of a moment that transcended. Music, becoming a reflection on art, life, and the internal struggles everyone faces. There was no longer a distinction between artist and audience. Everyone was united by an experience of pure authenticity and expression. As the audience slowly began to rise, many still speechless, the stadium lights gradually came on, signaling the end of the show. But no one was rushing to leave. They knew that night had been different. Those present knew they were experiencing something they could never fully explain, but that would stay with them forever. The feeling that something ineffable had happened permeated the room, creating a silent connection between each person in the room. Art in its purest form had made itself present and touched them in ways they could never have imagined. As the audience dispersed, still entranced by what they had experienced, murmurs began. Fans discussed what they had just seen and heard, exchanging words about the intensity of Amy's performance, the tribute to Billie Holiday, and how it had gone beyond what they had imagined a simple concert could be. Some spoke of how the tribute to Billie had resonated with their own lives. Others tried to understand what that gesture of interrupting the show meant in the context of Amy's career. But everyone agreed that night would never be forgotten. In the end, the big question that remained was, what did Amy Winehouse want us all to take away from that experience? What did she truly want to convey? Perhaps the answer lies in the very way she surrendered herself to that tribute, in the way she used music not just as a platform for display, but as a visceral and honest cry, a means of expressing what art can mean in moments of personal struggle. She wasn't just honoring Billie Holiday, she was honoring herself, her own pain, and her own journey as an artist. She was telling the audience that music, like life, is a reflection of our inner struggles, and only by exposing ourselves completely can we truly touch others. The true magnitude of the night wasn't immediately apparent, but as the days passed, the echoes of that experience began to resonate even more strongly. The story of the night Amy Winehouse interrupted her show to pay tribute to Billie Holiday spread far and wide. She was no longer just a music star. She was a legend in her own right, capable of touching people's hearts deeply. And although the night was over, the impact she made remained. This was a milestone, not only in Amy's career, but in the history of music, a reminder that true art is never just about the show. It's about the truth, the pain, and the beauty that emerge when we allow ourselves to be completely vulnerable. Thus, the night came to an end, but not the legacy. For those present, for those who heard the story, and even more so for Amy Winehouse, that night had become a legend that would never be forgotten. What happened there on that stage was more than a tribute. It was a moment of pure artistic transcendence, and its memory would endure, transforming everyone who experienced it. Amy had, at last, accomplished her mission, and with it, she left behind something that could never be erased, proof that through music we can truly live our truth and leave an eternal mark on the world.